Showtime.
It's the pre-party with J. Cal.
We are professional wrestling.
I'm building an alliance.
You are tuned into
the absolute top of the mountain, the ultimate professional wrestling.
Alliance-wrestling.com.
You guys hear me? Oh gosh, did it again. Let's try it again. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, this is the pre-party with your boy J. Cal. This is a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com, your #1 source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. We're the pre-show for Prime Time Live. That is the pay-per-view that highlights the night. Tuesday nights, you get Prime Time Live. You get matches that feature talent from all across the country. You get talent from, of course, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Championship Wrestling from Arizona. That makes sense. But it also features talent from the National Wrestling Alliance. As well as tonight, we got talent from New Japan Pro Wrestling. What an exciting time to be alive, guys. What an exciting time to be a fan of the NWA and a fan of the United Wrestling Network. Now, as we talk about Prime Time Live, I would be remiss if we didn't mention some of the things that happened last week. We had our world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis, go toe-to-toe with the Miracle Mike Bennett. Guys, I know the match wasn't as fluid as we might have wanted. There seemed to be some sort of timing issues. We know that there was issues with the pay-per-view in terms of the streaming, the content. People were getting kicked out, and I know that that's a hassle. If you guys did purchase the show last week on Fight TV, you can go back and watch the replay, and it has been fixed. It has been addressed. But let's not take away from that match that we saw Mike Bennett go toe-to-toe with our world's heavyweight champion, gave him everything he could, and came up short. Nick Aldis surpassed 700 days in a single reign as your world's heavyweight champion. There's only a few people that can say that. And in the last 25 years, the only other person to say that is Dan the Beast Severin. And I really want people to realize that even during this pandemic, Nick Aldis, his first title defense of the year was back in January. There were matches scheduled in March and April, of course, with the Crockett Cup, his match with Carlitos in Puerto Rico. He was also supposed to face PCO at a Ring of Honor event. A lot of those matches all got scrapped because of the pandemic, because of no live sporting events and all that sort of stuff. So it's unfortunate that we didn't have these matches, but that's not Nick's fault. And let's be honest, the people that they were putting in front of Nick Aldis, he would still be world's heavyweight champion because Carlito's not going to beat Nick Aldis. Marty Scurll already had his opportunity and blew it. Flip Gordon fell by the wayside. PCO might have had a chance. But nevertheless, our world's heavyweight champion successful in his first title defense in 6 months. Oh, no, let me take that back. Second title defense in 6 months. Of course, he beat Nobi Bryant back in August at the Independent Wrestling Expo out in Richland Hills, Texas. I mean, that was the highlight of the night, but we had some pretty great action at that show, right? We had the Tribe taking on the Wolf Zaddies, two of my favorite teams, and they went toe-to-toe. They basically went crazy because, well, that's what they do. Both those tag teams are very competitive, of course, but also brutal, very strong style type wrestling. And it takes a lot to take either one of them out. Clearly, that match hasn't resolved anything, and I can't wait to see what's next in that bout. I do recall the United Wrestling Network TV title match. Seemed like there were some pacing issues, and that match suffered from it. But ultimately, our United Wrestling Network television champion Dan Joseph retained his title. I'm kind of all over the place. We also have the women's match between Heather Monroe taking on the NWA's Camille. Camille looked really good in this match, but of course, I want to tip my hat to Heather Monroe during this show, because Heather Monroe went in there with nobody giving her the benefit of the doubt. No one expected her to be able to compete against Camille. And she took it to Camille. She took advantage of the opportunities, and she really looked good in that match. And that was one of the hallmarks of this show, is that even in defeat, a lot of these guys and gals still looked really good during the show. Win, lose, or draw, they still managed to look good. And I think that's pretty compelling storytelling. I mean, Will All Day, Jordan Clearwater. Jordan Clearwater walked away with a victory, but everyone's still talking about Will All Day. Ultimately, if you guys didn't order the first episode, I strongly encourage you to order today's episode. I strongly encourage you to check out the United Wrestling Network's Primetime Live. I mean, it goes off in about, 4 hours? A little bit less than 4 hours. And if you haven't ordered it yet, you can go to Fight TV, $7.99 for today's episode. If you are curious about the first episode, you might as well get the 4-pack and get the benefit of last week's show plus the next 3, or next 2 after tonight, of course. But I strongly recommend it. I enjoyed my time there at Long Beach Thunder Studios in Long Beach, California. I was so lucky and benefited from my friendship with David Marquez. I was able to be there live, and I definitely thought that the show looked good from my vantage point, and I really was happy with what I saw. And again, a lot of big names are associated with these shows. I mean, Alexander Hammerstone, he is the West Coast Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion, but he's also the MLW openweight champion. And let's not forget, in Southern California, he's the PCW heavyweight champion. So, I mean, it's not like he's a slouch or anything, but he's carrying 3 different titles in 3 different companies, and he certainly represented against DJ Sparks. I'm going to jump onto some of your comments real quick to see what you guys said, because I see there's a full house already, and I do appreciate you guys joining us this week and being a part of the pre-party. You never know what surprise may come up. You never know when I might be back in the Thunder Studios, and it may happen sooner than later. You guys can hear me, that's good. MLW's Priscilla Kelly too. I was going to get to that Woodland Goblin, I promise. DKM said they broke the belt. Yeah, the belt did break, and it kind of hurt my heart to see the dome fall off the belt, but then I was also kind of reminded of Terry Funk when he was champion and how the dome had fallen off his title, and he ran around with that belt without the dome for much of his reign. It just kind of had that same feeling. Wrestling with MMA is here. No big news yet. I mean, we're going to talk about James Storm in just a minute. In fact, let's just talk about James Storm right now. The Cowboy James Storm. A lot of people are making a big to-do about the announcement that James Storm is no longer under contract. And I know that, I mean, in a 24-hour news cycle that's even kind of spilled into professional wrestling, we're always looking for the news, we're always looking to one-up somebody, we're always looking to talk about something, and I think this is a much ado about nothing. The National Wrestling Alliance, although one of the richest historic wrestling promotions, wrestling bodies, wrestling governing bodies, is synonymous with legacy, is synonymous with history and tradition. Some might even call it the granddaddy of them all. The NWA has been in a stalling pattern. The NWA has been on pause. And not just because of the pandemic, but because of the termination or the separation of the Vice President David Lagana from the company. And ever since David Lagana left, the amount of content that has come out from the National Wrestling Alliance came to a screeching halt until recently. The amount of course, live events with the NWA as promoting these events have come to a halt. Yeah, if you guys were on Twitter a couple of days ago, Nick Aldis was mentioning that there was talks of a NWA tour of the United Kingdom. All this stuff came to a halt when the NWA basically, they didn't close. I mean, that's the thing. We can't say that it's closed. But the NWA came to a halt. They're paused. They're still on hiatus. And again, if it wasn't for the United Wrestling Network, yes, we would still have Thunder Rosa defending that championship in AEW, which is great. We would still have Thunder Rosa defending that championship in her own home promotion, Mission Pro Wrestling, which also is great. We would also have Nick Aldis, the National Treasurer, defending that 10 pounds of gold on independent circuits like he did on August 31st. But ultimately, the NWA as a promotion is in a stall pattern. No hirings, no firings. If contracts expires, they're expiring. You know, Tasha Steelz wasn't under contract when she went to Impact Wrestling. Ricky Starks wasn't under contract when he went to All Elite Wrestling. The same thing with Eddie Kingston. If some of these guys were let out of their contracts, like Starks, like Cabana, let me rephrase that. I don't believe Cabana was under a contract. And again, we don't have specifics of who's under contracts and who's not. This isn't a publicly traded company like the WWE, so we don't really know. But we do know that James Storm, as apparently his contract has expired. What does that mean? It means he's free to work anywhere. It means he's free to go work with AEW. It means he's free to go sign a contract with the WWE. It means he's free to go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's free to do whatever he wants. He's not under contract. But the thing is, if the NWA machine was to start promoting events tomorrow, he's also able to work for the NWA. He isn't half of the tag team champions, and that can be problematic. But I think more of that announcement that he was not under contract was more for the benefit of James Storm, so that if he chooses to go seek work elsewhere, he can get it. But in AEW in the last month have signed 4 more people to contracts. The WWE hasn't really signed anybody. Impact has signed a few names over the last few months. But at this point, there is going to be market saturation. The WWE can only sign so many people. The AEW, although I guess they haven't hit that threshold yet, they can only sign so many people. Impact Pro Wrestling can only sign so many people. New Japan Pro Wrestling can only sign so many people. Ring of Honor can only sign... You see what I'm saying? James Storm is a hell of a talent. He's a good guy. He's a nice guy. He's got a great promo in the ring. He's got good skills in the ring. And he still can be an asset to many, many wrestling promotions. But at this stage in his career, I don't know that WWE is knocking on his door. I don't know that AEW is knocking on his door. It's my hopes that we'll see James Storm defend the tag team titles with Eli Drake at some point. But to be honest, I'm not entirely convinced he's done with the NWA. I don't know that Billy's signing anybody to contracts or renewing any contracts in the middle of the pandemic. When they start taping shows again, when they start producing live events again, I could see things changing. But in the meantime, I think those contracts are just going to play themselves out. And I don't think anyone will be renewed or re-signed, with the exception of maybe the world's heavyweight champion, Nick Aldis, and the world's women's champion, Thunder Rosa. Obviously, they're 2 hot commodities right now. And I think, especially Thunder Rosa, when AEW is continuing to use her and bring her in, it's obvious that they want to use her. So I'm assuming that Billy will do whatever it takes to keep Thunder Rosa under roster, under contract. But that's just me talking out loud. I really don't. I don't know that for certain. Brian Rosa's here. Brian Rosa, we were just talking about how amazing Thunder Rosa is. So going through some more of your comments. DKM says Dice is still under contract until we hear otherwise. Terry McDermott says hello everyone. DKM says, do you still have tag team champions? I mean, until they don't have tag team champions, we still recognize Eli Drake and James Storm as tag team champions. Remember when Billy Corgan bought the NWA, and at that October deadline when they took over the NWA in 2017, I mean, they made it clear that they were closing up some of the titles, putting them back in the vault, if you will. They stripped the Heat Seekers of the tag team titles. They stripped the title from Mustang Mike. They stripped the title from Cahagas. They pulled these titles back. The only 2 titles they kept active were, at the time, Tim Storm and his 10 pounds of gold, and of course Jazz, who held the women's championship. And that's kind of where we're at right now. There's been no talk of the TV title, although Zicky Dice still is proclaiming he's champion. There's been no talk of Aaron Stevens and the national championship, although, again, there's been no official announcement that he's been stripped either. And again, there's been no formal announcement indicating that James Storm or Eli Drake are no longer tag team champions. So that proverbial bridge will be crossed when it's time to talk about those belts. But as far as I'm concerned, all 4 of those men still hold those titles. So that's what it is. So I really do think that we have a great card tonight for Primetime Live. In fact, I think the producers, David Marquez specifically, United Wrestling Network, kind of learned their lesson from last week. They had 7 matches with 3 championships on the line, and it felt a little bit rushed. It felt a little bit overkill. And I don't want to disparage the United Wrestling Network for trying to produce content, trying to produce a show with as much wrestling as they can, because I think ultimately at the end of the day we all want that. We all want a wrestling show that's packed with action, packed with promos, and less of that soap opera stuff. Less and less of the gimmicky stuff. And I think we got it. Yes, there were some glitches with the show. Nobody can be forgiven for that, but it's done and over with. We can't really change what happened. But some of the pacing from the matches, like the United Wrestling Network TV title match, that suffered, I think. The World's Heavyweight Championship match suffered, I think. And I think, some of the matches early on the card got a little bit more time than they probably should have. But tonight, instead of presenting 7 matches, they're presenting 5. And I think this is to the benefit of everybody, really, because they're going to have a little bit more time to work, which means the matches are going to be, with the people that are on this card, are going to be really high quality. Of course, we're headlined by Thunder Rosa, and like I said earlier in the program, she's probably the hottest talent in professional wrestling right now, because not only is she a women's world champion for the National Wrestling Alliance, who's being showcased on All Elite Wrestling, quite possibly the 3rd largest wrestling promotion in the United States, maybe even 2nd largest if you want to discount what New Japan Pro Wrestling does. That's huge. And the fact that she can come out here to Long Beach, California, and defend that title against Priscilla Kelly as the main event for United Wrestling Network, that's a big deal. And the fact that just a few days earlier at Mission Pro, she defended her title against Lindsay Snow, the American Kaiju, in a match that people are still talking about, I think it's a huge deal. Right now, there's nobody hotter than Thunder Rosa in professional wrestling. Prove me wrong. Fight me, for crying out loud. Tell me who's better than Thunder Rosa right now. Men, women, child, anything. She's the hottest commodity in professional wrestling. The Khans know it, that's why they're using her. Dave Marquez knows it, that's why they're using her. There's a reason why all these talents are showing up in Primetime Live. It's because Dave is trying to get the best audience he can get. And of course, the show is headlined by Thunder Rosa. So on the card, what we have is a couple of. I think we have a pretty good card tonight, and I'm just going to pull it up here because off the top of my head I just forgot it. So let me just pull that up real quick. And of course, where I'm going to get the card is the same place you should go to get all your wrestling information for the National Wrestling Alliance, and that's alliance-wrestling.com, your #1 source for news and information for the NWA, for United Wrestling Network, for Primetime Live, Power, all that good stuff. So the first matchup we have tonight, we're going to see the Real Money Brothers taking on the Friendship Farm. I know a lot of you guys are unfamiliar with these tag teams. I'm going to give you a little bit of history on the Real Money Brothers here in just a moment. We also have a New Japan star, Carl Fredericks, taking on Slice Boogie. And he's new to the United Wrestling Network. He's new to Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. That should be a pretty good match. Danny Limelight, again, who has been competing for the New Japan cards at the Ocean View Pavilion as part of New Japan of USA. That's the New Japan Strong, the New Japan USA tournaments that they've been having. He takes on Kevin Martinson. Some of you guys remember him as Johnny Goodtime, BHK of Vermin, of the Rock Nest Monsters. That's going to be a killer match. If you guys are into the high-flying style of wrestling, this will be a great one to watch. Another match that I think is sorely underrated would be Eric Watts taking on Eli Drake. Of course, Eli Drake, nothing more needs to be said about Eli Drake. That's going to be a great match. Hope you guys are tuning in for that one. Of course, Priscilla Kelly, Thunder Rosa. I mean, that's the main event. That's why everyone's tuning in this week. And it's going to be a good show, so I definitely recommend that. But let me give you a little bit of history on some of the competitors. Because I think, obviously you guys know who Thunder Rosa is. I don't have to tell you how great she is or where she came from. If you don't know who Thunder Rosa is, check the videos over here. We had an interview with Thunder Rosa just a few months ago. First of all, she's awesome. Second of all, I think it was a really good interview. She was very transparent, talked about her history with professional wrestling. where she started, where she is now. If you haven't heard it, check it out. I think it's a good interview. And I'm not just saying that because I conducted it. So the Real Money Brothers, and that would be Clutch, Kakura, and Sugar Brown. They were used to be known as the Bonus Boys. That's with a Z. Bonus Boys. Boys. And they're unique in the fact that this tag team competed in China with the Oriental Wrestling Entertainment, that group. They had a few matches in China, but out here on the West Coast, they are known for being the current Arizona Wrestling Federation Tag Team Champions. They were 4-time West Coast Wrestling Connection Tag Team Champions. And of course, they're 2-time Future Stars of Wrestling Tag Team Champions. They have appearances with Championship Wrestling from Arizona and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood in the past. But I think there's certainly a different flavor, if you will, for Primetime Live. Certainly a different tag team. And this is one of those things we keep talking about as fans of the NWA or United Wrestling Network is we need more tag teams. And I think this is a step, in a right direction. This is a step for the collective to bring in more tag team wrestling. As the Real Money Brothers, hopefully we're going to see more tag team wrestling. Of course, they're taking on the Friendship Farm, and that would be Gentleman Jervis, and I can't remember the other guy's name right now. Now I feel like a jerk. The Sweet Boy. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Now I feel like a jerk. This is the part of the show where I look unprofessional. Sweet Robin Shaw. There it is. Sweet Robin Shaw. Okay. So, Sweet Robin Shaw and Gentleman Juris have been competing in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood for quite some time. Some of the matches, it's definitely comedy wrestling. It's not ultra competitive. It's not as intense. It definitely brings something different to the table. If you're into silliness, you'll definitely love Gentleman Jervis. You'll definitely love Sweet Robin Shaw. I don't know that you're going to see a lot of that silliness out of the Cash, like Real Money Brothers. Almost called them the Bonus Boys. I don't know if you'll see a lot of time with that, and I definitely think Real Money Brothers are here to make an impact. And again, I think they're trying to take that tag team division and be a part of what's next for the United Wrestling Network. Of course, the tag team champions are static. We still haven't seen them. Yet. And then I guess one of the matches I missed was Ray Rosas is supposed to be defending the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Heritage title, along with the Championship Wrestling from Arizona State Championship. But they haven't named an opponent for him yet. I don't know if that match is still taking place or if he's just going to be on the show, maybe making a challenge for week 3. But we'll see how that works out. I mean, last week, Eli Drake was in the audience. He was not in the audience, but at the show. But he didn't have a match on television, on the pay-per-view. So maybe Rosas will be wrestling a dark match, or maybe his presence will be more of a match announcement. Next up, we have Carl Fredericks taking on Slice Boogie. Now, Slice Boogie made his Championship Wrestling from Hollywood debut just recently. I believe Slice Boogie is one of the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy students. I believe. I could be mistaken. I don't know a whole lot about Slice Boogie, but I can tell you a whole lot about Carl Fredericks. Because Carl Fredericks is he's not a SoCal guy, but he is from California. He's what we call a NorCal guy. He's wrestled for APW. He's wrestled for PCW up north. But most importantly, he's become an integral part of this New Japan of USA. He and Clark Connors have really kind of been part of that glue that has come from the LA dojo. I mean, he's under the tutelage of Shibata, which a lot of these guys are. He's had a few matches in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. His first appearance, he had this really good match against Ryan Taylor, like kind of to showcase just how tough these LA dojo boys are. And he's competed on several tours in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is part of their Young Lions Cup that they recently had. But again, under the tutelage of Shibata, he's really taken his wrestling to the next level. I mean, when we talk about a New Japan Pro Wrestling star, I mean, this is pretty much... I see big things coming for Carl Fredericks down the road. If you guys have been longtime David Marquez fans, and maybe not fans of him, but fans of the wrestling he's produced, years ago he was associated with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he was doing events called New Japan Pro Wrestling USA, Tokon Live events, Tokon TV, and his guys that he was kind of bringing up were Chad Collier, T.J. Perkins, Rocky Romero, Ricky Reyes, Bryan Danielson, Samoa Joe, and these guys kind of, some of them did not make much of an impact in New Japan or even had an opportunity to wrestle in New Japan. But a couple of those guys, specifically Rocky Romero, really did well in New Japan. Rocky Romero is former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. He's also an NWA Junior Heavyweight Champion. He was also multi-time IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Champion. And I believe Carl Fredericks in some capacity is similar to Rocky Romero, because Rocky Romero, again, started with Dave doing these shows locally, but then became an international star for New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of their biggest junior heavyweights. I can see the same thing happening for Carl Fredericks, but under the heavyweight division. I can see him really growing with that company. So it's pretty cool that United Wrestling Network, Primetime Live, is taking advantage of a guy like Carl Fredericks to showcase him here in the United States while he's waiting for that next tour in Japan, while he's waiting for that next opportunity to showcase his talents in New Japan. And they have matches already taped for that New Japan Strong show that airs on the New Japan World streaming service. And he's all over it. So again, very much a New Japan guy, very skilled competitor. Him versus Slice Boogie is going to be hard hitting for two different reasons. Because you've got one guy who's very solid in the ring and one guy who's just a fighter, just a straight up brawler. So I really am looking forward to this match. It's going to be intense. A lot of people are sleeping on Carl Fredericks. I'm telling you, that's a mistake. This is going to be one to watch. Up next, we have my boy. Watts. And I don't say that like mischievously or disrespectfully. Eric Watts is my guy. Eric Watts has been my guy for some time. In fact, when I went to China, I got to hang out with Watts. There was a joke going on because Watts' tag team partner, Watts, when he was in China as part of the United Wrestling Network's China Extravaganza, the wrestling from Wenzhou, he was supposed to team up with a wrestler whose visa was not didn't make it in time. And so Watts was supposed to take on Reno Scum with this tag team partner who no-showed or just couldn't get out of the country. Alex Chamberlain ended up filling in, so he literally jumped on a plane like a day before the show was supposed to be there and literally flew in just to get there in time for the match. But we joked around the entire time that I was going to fill in for Watts' partner because I was just there as a spectator, as a photographer, so why not? He's taking on Eli Drake. Well, we don't need to say anything more about Eli Drake. He's an NWA Tag Team Champion. He's a former Impact Heavyweight Champion. He's a former Hollywood Heritage Champion. And these two have never squared off before, which I find very interesting. In all the years that Watts has been in Hollywood and Eli Drake was there, they never seem to square off in the ring. So this will be a first-time matchup, but it's like 10 years in the making. About Watts, he is a former United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champion. In fact, he held those titles basically as a singles wrestler when his manager was helping facilitate some of those tag matches. He's a former Hollywood Heritage Champion. He and Eli Drake have that in common. Back in the early days when Watts was a part of the Family Stone, he challenged Scrap Iron Adam Pearce for that 10 pounds of gold. And these are on the early Championship Wrestling from Hollywood shows, back when they were taping in Glendale Studios, so we're talking about 2012. And really kind of made his impact. And he put the hurt on Adam Pearce. Didn't win the title, but certainly gave Adam Pearce a run for his money back then. Some of you guys might remember Watts from his limited time on WWE's Tough Enough. Of course, that didn't pan out for him so well, but ultimately, I mean, he did make a name for himself there. And ever since then, his stock has really gone up. He's wrestled all over Southern California, has had acclaim pretty much everywhere he goes. This is, I think, going to be a breaking out match for Watts. I really think, no matter win, lose, or draw, kind of like with Heather Monroe and Camille last week, win, lose, or draw, people are going to be talking about Watts after this match. I believe he's highly underrated, and this might be the moment that's going to help propel him to start a win, lose, or draw. Oh, and one last thing. He used to team with Scorpio Sky and the Independents out here in Southern California, and they were called Wakanda Forever. I always thought that was pretty cool. And in the main event, if you don't know about Priscilla Kelly, so far, I mean, her nickname, Hell's Favorite Harlot, cool. She's got a very interesting look. She's done some crazy stuff. And if you guys have read the dirt sheets, I mean, the whole spot that she had out here in Southern California that she was kind of made famous for, tasteless, kind of gross, but she's a skilled wrestler. And I think a lot of people lose out on that. They lose out on the gimmick of who she is, or maybe they put too much into the gimmick of who she is and don't really see her as a professional wrestler. She is currently the reigning first Wrestling Uptown VFW champion, which basically means she holds an intergender title for First Wrestling. She was trained by a former NWA World Tag Team Champion, Murder One. Murder One was a tag team with the Usual Suspects. They feuded with the Dark City Fight Club, and this was back in, again, probably 2008, 2009, maybe 2010. Her first match since that pandemic pause that really kind of put a halt on independent wrestling in this country was against last week's big name, the Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson. Of course, she wasn't very successful in that match, but she did hold her own. A lot of people were talking about that in those circles who like the more hardcore style of wrestling. She's made appearances for AEW. She wrestles semi-regularly for MLW. She's also competed in Shimmer and in Shine. Those are women's wrestling promotions, if you're not too familiar with. She's worked in the Tokyo Joshi Pro. That's the same promotion, the TJP, that Thunder Rosa is currently the International Princess Champion. So Priscilla Kelly, although might be known for that spot, for that gimmick, for that one incident, is a pretty competent wrestler. Now, she's no Sheeta. She's no Lindsay Snow. She's no Allison Kay. But she's not unskilled. She's not unqualified. It's going to be interesting to see what happens tonight, because Thunder Rosa, again, she's been on a tear. If you guys are watching anything outside of the NWA, you know that she's been in AEW. She beat the shit out of Ivelisse for sandbagging her during a match. She beat the shit out of... I lost my train of thought. She had a great match just recently with Serena Deeb, where she defended the NWA Women's Championship. She challenged Sheeta to the AEW Championship and just got this close from winning it. Again, she had that match with Lindsay Snow just a few days ago, and people are still talking about it. Thunder Rosa, for sure, is the hottest commodity in professional wrestling today, and honestly, totally worthy of you ordering this pay-per-view tonight. $7.99 on Fight TV, or you can order the bundle package and get last week's episode as well as today's and the next two episodes for $23.99. If you haven't ordered already, do so. I highly recommend it. And now I'm going to jump to some of your comments. And let's see. Devin Mercer said 5 is good. The main event should start near the top of the hour. Agreed. I think, and I've said this, DKM and I spoke offline. We talked about this on the Discord channel for the NWA. It's the NWA podcast Discord channel. I think most of you are already in there. But there were some pacing issues. There was too much wrestling. They were trying to put too much into the first show. And I understand why they did it. I totally do. But I think we could have done without at least one of those title matches. And I think that would have made the main event better. And that would have made the rest of the card flow better. And then Brian Rosas. Brian, thanks for checking us out. Thunder has not been to sleep since last Thursday morning. I believe it, man. And your wife is a freaking machine because, again, who's wrestling as much as she is? Who's doing this? You know what I mean? Like, there's outside of WWE contracted wrestlers, AEW talent isn't working this much. The WWE talent isn't working this much. There's no house shows right now. So really, Thunder Rosa, who's made appearances in Southwest Entertainment down in Texas, again, Mission Pro, doing the shows in Chicago, I think that was 2 weekends ago, United Wrestling Network tonight, AEW next week. I mean, she's constantly working, and you have to tip your hat to not only the work ethic, but the fact that she's dominating. I don't want to say she dominated Lindsay Snow. She didn't dominate Sheeta because she ended up losing, but she's dominating professional wrestling, and that she's becoming the name that people are just can't keep out of their mouths. Hell, even Allison Kay, who hasn't had a direct path to Thunder Rosa since January, is still bringing it up, trying to get her name in the same sentence with Thunder Rosa. And I love Allison Kay. I think she's a phenomenal talent. But at this point, it's the Thunder Rosa show, and everyone knows that. NWA Gold is here. Dave Scooby says he and Danny Limelight had a great match last weekend on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Yeah, and he being Kevin Martinson. This match, it's hard to say which match is going to be the best tonight because I know Thunder Rosa is going to bring it. We know that. You don't have to question that. You know Watts and Eli Drake is going to be really good. It's going to be good. You can't deny how good Eli Drake is. Watts is really good too. You can't deny how good Carl Fredericks is. That Slice Boogie is going to have his work cut out for him because Carl Fredericks is really, really good. But Danny Limelight is so talented. I don't think people realize how much potential this kid has. He's a former United States Marine Corps drill instructor. If you need to find out more about Danny Limelight, again, check out the interview section here on this page because Danny Limelight has competed. Danny Limelight did an interview with me just a couple months ago. We were talking about his opportunities in New Japan Pro Wrestling USA. We're talking about where he came from. Talking about Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and the obstacle that he's overcome to get to where he is today. But pure and simple, the guy can go. It's almost unhuman to watch him in the ring, which is the best matchup I could think of, is somebody who's exactly like him. Kevin Martinson, for years, has been able to just make my jaw drop when watching him wrestle. I marvel at his ability to no wasted movements. There is a match where Kevin Martinson and Johnny Yuma, collectively known as the Rock Nest Monsters, were taking on the then United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champions, Double Platinum, Chris Bay and Swade Thompson. I'm not a big fan of Swade Thompson, but in that match, you see Kevin Martinson just do so much with so little, and it'll blow your mind. And I think their matchup tonight is going to blow your mind. I really think you're going to see some things that you probably haven't seen before. And for one, I'm really looking forward to it. I really am. Real quick, let me just check something real quick. I mean, we're starting to run out of time here, but that's funny. Okay. Len wanted everyone to know that Hammerstone is also an MLW national champion. NWA Gold wanted you to know that they're doing a biography tomorrow on the NWA Bahamas Heavyweight Championship. Len officially changed today's date to Thunder Rosa Tuesdays, which I kind of like that. It kind of works. For some reason, my multi-stream chat wasn't working. So, again, you guys want to check out alliance-wrestling.com for that profile on the Bahamas Championship. And let's see, more of your comments. Woodland Goblin says, I'm starting to really like Priscilla Kelly. I'm rooting for her tonight, but the NWA United Wrestling Network will not tolerate her past shenanigans. I mean, look, everyone in wrestling is looking for an angle, right? Everyone's trying to differentiate themselves from the other person. I really didn't like the incident that Priscilla Kelly was associated with, but up until that point, I think she had a very compelling personality. She's a little bit different. She's obviously the goth girl. She has a unique look. You don't really see that in wrestling today. But it's not like she was just some person who just jumped into wrestling. Like, she wasn't someone that was somebody's boyfriend that just got involved. She was trained by Murder One. Again, a former NWA World Tag Team Champion. And I'm pretty sure she doesn't get accepted into a wrestling school just based on her looks. And they don't say, okay, you're ready for your match based on your looks. You really have to put in effort and hard work to get that first match. And the fact that she was booked in a lot of places, I do want to give her credit. Do I think she's on the same level of Thunder Rosa? Shit, no. No! But do I think she's a talented female? Yes. Do I think she's going to give Thunder Rosa a good match tonight? 100% I do. But she's not Thunder Rosa. And let's not make a mistake about it. She's not Allison Kay. She's not Sheeta. She's not, Kimberly. She's not, she's not Lindsay Snow, the American Kaiju. She just isn't. More of your comments. Dave Scooby says, Watts lost the Heritage title to Rosas last month. Does Rosas show up tonight? Rosas was advertised, but no match was announced. So I don't know if he's just going to appear and maybe just introduce himself with a promo like Eli Drake did last week, or if he's actually going to have a match. I think to the credit of the Primetime Live and United Wrestling Network, I hope it's just a vignette, a promo introducing himself. Ray Rosas is great, but this show is so stacked. I don't want any matches to take away with what we have. Jonathan Burrell says, can't wait for Thunder Rosa. Do we know anything about Week 3? Will Aldis be there, etc.? Jonathan Burrell, the only match that they've announced thus far for Week 3 is Allison Kay taking on Serena Deeb. Am I saying that right? Serena Deeb, I'm not sure. Serena just joined the All Elite Wrestling roster. She just recently signed. We know that she had a losing effort at challenging Thunder Rosa for the NWA World's Women's Championship on All Elite Wrestling. And she will be in the United Wrestling Network next week to fight Allison Kay. And I'm sure that match will have some implications for the roster for the NWA Women's Division and potentially setting up another match. Let's see more of your comments. Jonathan Burrell also says Danny Limelight would be a great NWA World Cruiserweight Champion. Well, the NWA has never had a Cruiserweight Champion, but they had a Junior Heavyweight Championship. In fact, if you listen to that interview that I did with Danny Limelight, he specifically asked for the NWA to bring that belt back because he wants an opportunity to have that belt. In fact, it's kind of funny how this all works together. Barrett Brown, the last NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, has a match with Danny Limelight this week on New Japan Strong on the New Japan World streaming service. It's funny how that all works out because the guy who you think would make a good junior heavyweight champion just challenged the guy who is, in some regards, still the last man to hold the belt. If the NWA were to bring back the junior heavyweight division, which I really, really wish they would, I would ultimately want Danny Limelight in that division. I'd also want Kevin Martinson in that division. two very strong names to be in a junior heavyweight division if the NWA ever considered bringing that division back. And I know we're running out of time here, but we coming soon to the Alliance blog, we will be doing a retrospective about that World Junior Heavyweight title in that division. I hope you guys will stay tuned and check that out. We are running out of time, so I'm going to wrap the show up, but I hope you guys are feeling very pumped up and ready for tonight's pay-per-view, because I know I am. I'm so excited. I wish I was in Long Beach right now. I think I might have called my favor in a week early, because I think this show is going to be better than last week's. In fact, I'm positive it will be. I love Nick Aldis. I love the 10 pounds of gold. Miracle Mike Bennett did a great job. I was very happy with the Tribe and the Wolf Zaddies. Hammerstone is awesome. And I actually had some stuff to talk about Hammerstone. We just run out of time. But again, I'm so much looking forward to this match, to this show. And since we're running out of time, make sure you order on Fight TV for $7.99 or $23.99 and get the first episode and the next two. But that's going to do it for us here at the Pre-Party. Make sure to check me out on Friday on Instagram Live with the NWA pod as we do the hot tag. Me and Will Martin will talk about a subject. Make sure you guys join us again. Also, Spotify, the Alliance blog, weekly podcasts are going up there, JCal's View and the Friday hot tag. I'm seeing that my camera's about to die, so we're going to wrap it up here. You guys, you've been great. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to check out the merchandise, links will be available on Instagram and on Facebook. You can follow us on all socials at the Alliance blog. But that's it. That's the show. You guys have been great, and we'll see you next week for the Pre-Party!